Hi, everyone. It's David Kimmelman, and welcome back to another episode of Working. If this is your first time joining us, welcome and thanks for joining and tuning in. For all of you first timers, just to give you a sense of what Working is all about, I created this podcast to empower and enable people to find their career and job success. Throughout this series, I want to unlock your minds and clear any roadblocks you may have to the possibilities of thinking different about your career choices and direction, and how to navigate every step in your journey to get where your heart and soul desires. Every human being will at some point be looking for a job or a new career, and maybe transitioning from one career to another. And whether you are entering the job market for the very first time, or you're early in your career or mid-career or late career, Working is the podcast that will cover all the bases for you. So today, I am so excited for my guest, Celia Couture, who I have known for over 37 years. Celia is joining us to talk about the choices we make during our career journey. There are so many times throughout your career where you feel that you don't have a choice. But I want you all to know this and remember this, that you always have a choice. Now, Celia and I will discuss and unpack for you how you make career choices, how your choices lead to more choices, and how to find your voice during your career and your job search and while you're employed as well. Now, a little bit about Celia. She comes with over 30 years of experience at Hewlett-Packard, 15 years as an executive coach, and she empowers women by helping them identify their inner glass ceiling. And while her main focus these days is working with women, her experience, her skills, her expertise applies to both men and women alike. To that point, Celia has a proven track record of empowering leaders, fostering growth, and driving success. She is committed to her clients' personal and professional development, building relationships, and crafting a standout personal image. So please welcome Celia Couture.
Hi, David.
Celia. How are you?
Hi, thank you. Nice to see you.
It is great to see you. So I think one of the first things that I want to just share with our audience is, so I mentioned that I know Celia for over 37 years. And I first met Celia in, I think it was like August of 1988. And I had just moved to Massachusetts a few months earlier.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anybody. And I was really looking to see if I could find some experience, like to get into theater or to continue kind of doing theater that I love so much, even though I wasn't doing it professionally anymore. Somebody told me about this theater company called the Arlington Friends of the Drama. And I went and auditioned for a play called Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean. And I was fortunate enough to be cast in the show by Celia, who was directing it. And then over the many years that, we've known each other, Celia's directed me in like 10 or 11 plays and musicals.
Right.
And, in previous podcasts as well, I've talked about the through line of my career being very people-centric. And one of the things that Celia was always fantastic at doing with me, and she did this in Jimmy Dean, where, if I was struggling to to get to a place, Celia would work with me, and she's done this with our other actors, to kind of really talk you through and ask you questions and give you, these ideas of what you may want to try or how you might want to get someplace, to the point where it becomes real and authentic for you as an actor. And I think she does a great job of that with all of the coaching that she does as well, because it's very similar, whether you're coaching somebody in their career or directing them on stage. So with that being said, Celia, can you, just give us an idea, give the audience an idea of, your personal career journey, how you started out, if you were this strong, confident, courageous woman when you started your career, or is it something you grew into and got mentors? So just tell us a little bit about how you got from there to where you are today.
Happy to. First of all, there's a distinct connection between theater and coaching.
Right.
It's really you utilize the same set of skills. It's just kind of a different platform or a different stage, but the skill set is exactly the same. So I went to college and majored in English. And then we had to kind of declare, well, what are you going to do with this degree? And so I decided at that point, well, I love to teach. I love to be around, and I loved being around kids. So I said, all right, I'm going to get my undergrad major in English, but I'm going to go ahead and get certified as a teacher in Massachusetts.
Okay.
So when I first started, I was an English teacher, high school English, and I loved it because I got to explore literature. And again, there's a deep connection between my love for literature and my love for directing plays and getting to the subtext and all that kind of stuff. So I taught high school English for about 10 years. Then I said to myself, there might be other things out there for me. And I started exploring human resource type jobs that had a training component to it. So I did a year of literally kind of looking around for what companies I was really interested in. And I wanted to really make sure that wherever I went, my values were part of the mission of that particular company. And at the time, Hewlett-Packard was kind of at the top of my list.
Okay.
And as I'm tooling around looking for jobs, they had an opening for a training, I don't think it was a training manager at that time, just for someone to come in and deliver content for them. In those days, created the content. This wasn't something they shopped out. This was whatever the executive team needed and they wanted to push down through the organization. These training folks put together this training. So it wasn't just delivery. It was, how do we deliver it? What tools do people need? How do we assess what people need? Right. All of that. So I went in and interviewed, not thinking I'd even get it. I mean, we're talking about, I had no corporate experience at all. What I could do was deliver training. That I knew I could do.
Okay.
And I interviewed with a woman who was not the director of human resources, but she was responsible for all training, management training.
Okay. And at that time, was it actually called human resources or was it personnel?
No, it was called personnel.
It was personnel back with
personnel.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Never human resources. And she was responsible for the training bucket.
Got it.
And I interviewed with her, and we just had a great conversation. That's essentially how this all started. Admittedly, I said, hey, I don't have a corporate background. What I do have is a real desire to learn and a real desire to want to train. And what the other thing that piqued my interest was development training. So anyway, by the grace of God, I get hired. No one was more surprised than me. So I went in and spent probably 3 to 4 years in personnel in this function, training. And the great thing about it, David, was because it was a manufacturing environment, I got to train four people at all levels. I got to know people doing all kinds of jobs. And at that time, they did everything from soup to nuts, from putting, little things on PC boards to developing strategic initiatives. It was a great job. But when you're in manufacturing, truthfully, everybody has a bitch about sales. And that's all I was hearing. The salespeople, they don't know how to do this, they don't know how to do that. So I said, I don't know much about HP sales. So I said to myself, all right, you've done this for 4 years. This is a really good base. You understand the culture. What don't you understand? I don't understand sales. Now, I see another job posted for someone to run a branch sales office.
Okay.
And I say to myself, okay, don't know much about this, but used to leading. And at that point, I was directing a lot of shows. So leadership positions and board positions, those were all things I was already doing. So I kind of said, how hard can this be? Right. And I went in, and with that job, I did interview with kind of a C-suite person who was really looking for someone to come in as a branch manager at a big sales office, and it was in Burlington, Mass, to run that office, to literally run it. And my interfaces then were with all of the salespeople, but also at the time, all of the tech folks and the printer division. So it was really heavy into understanding our products, certainly understanding our printer division, ink sales, all that. In those days, David, if you wanted a printer, a sales guy would be peddling that printer and bringing it to the company.
Yeah, I was selling copiers when I met you.
Exactly the same shtick here. So I came in to do that job and was fairly quickly promoted to a more senior level where I had a bunch of managers reporting to me that were on the administrative side, not the sales side. So here's where I think your readers will be really interested, because it's important for everybody to understand, where do you find your voice and what's the trigger that helps you do that. So I had to go into an executive level meeting. I believe it was around the first of the year, where you kind of kick off and explain to everybody, this is kind of what I want to do. And so the demographic of the room were all men and one senior woman, and me. And I can tell you honestly, I was prepared. I knew what I wanted to say. I knew what my goals and objectives were. And I thought I was going to go in there and hit a home run. And they were going to just fawn all over me and say, oh man, you're great, terrific. So I go through my whole spiel with my beautifully prepared slides and my handouts and all that stuff. And he was the general manager, but he was the senior most person in that organization. And there was quiet after I finished, which was a little unnerving. And for women, we like to fill space. So that silence got me a little nervous, but anyway, just stayed. And the only thing that came out of his mouth were the following words: "Once you earn our respect, we will be happy to support you." End. Now, inside, my body was dying. I'm sure that my face was flushed. I'm sure I went through all of that. But I, kind of mustered up my courage and said, "Well, thank you very much for your time." Walked out of the conference room and immediately headed to the ladies' room. And not because I was gonna sob, but because I was literally shaking. And I needed that moment to kind of say to myself, what the hell just happened? And to be honest with you, David, I had never at that point in my career trajectory been faced with a turning point.
Right.
In retrospect, who the hell are you to tell me I have to earn your respect? Now I can say that. Then, so I didn't have the voice. And what I learned, David, is to be an authentic leader, it can't be performative.
Right.
It really can't. You can't perform at it. You need to be it. It took me a really long time in those 2 or 3 years in that function. And I want to make sure everybody understands this doesn't happen overnight. 2 to 3 years I was in that job. And I didn't find my voice right away. I adapted. So I did the kinds of things that I thought were professional, tried to be well-spoken, adapted to needs. But I really never said, this is what I want, and this is what I need, and this is what I deserve.
Okay.
So I didn't, for a few years, get to that point. Ultimately, the demographics of the organization started to change, and there was a real push by HP to move women through the organization. And truthfully, I was good at what I was doing, but it was time for me to take a more strategic role. And I developed for the region essentially a new way of moving products very quickly, something that had never been done. And I did it, and I put it in my particular region, and it got some PR. And suddenly I was having all of these people pop in to kind of see what the hell are you doing here? And that's what kind of got me noticed more across the US, and certainly to even higher levels of management. And it's because of that job that I was then started my promotion trajectory into more and more jobs that were strategic in nature.
So
at one,
I just want to ask you a question. If you think about up until that point, right, and you're talking about the time that it took to find your voice, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So is that kind of akin to that you had to grind, right? You had to grind it out. You had to, I think especially as a woman at that time, you had to work your ass off and
Yes.
really grind it out.
Yes, totally.
To get to the point of where you actually could find your voice, So it was very much a gradual kind of climb, but it took time.
Took a lot of time. And we didn't have women we're talking the 80s, women didn't have a ton of mentors in those days.
Right.
The mentors we had were men. And, I love men. However, in terms of in terms of how women lead and how men lead, they're two different worlds. So, where men can be, can kind of say what they want, and that's perceived as confidence and power, and they're decisive. Women, on the other hand, are not seen that way at all. So for part of that time, I had to be very collaborative, adapting. I keep going back to that word. But the way it was perceived was really different. And that's what I mean about you kind of have to find your voice, So I softened my openings. I added disclaimers. Well, I don't know if this is sort of the right way to go, but. So there were always these disclaimers in front of the comments I was making. What I didn't realize then, that now I coach women not to do, is how that diminished me in the eyes of senior managers, because it was all perceived as very tentative and not strategic. And man, it took me a really long time, David, to learn how to kind of reframe how I spoke, what kinds of things I was saying to get the kind of buy-in I wanted, and ultimately to ask for what I wanted. And the job I wanted ultimately, before I left HP, was this global logistics manager. And that was kind of like, that was a pretty high level position.
Right.
Now, I will tell you, maybe it was the internal tenacity that kept me moving forward. But I was also fortunate that as I kept going, eventually there were female mentors, but there were also some great male mentors. And one of the things I did, and I constantly tell women to do this, go find yourself mentors. Yeah. And there should be multiple different mentors, because the kind of people you're going to gravitate to have all kinds of different skills. So what is it that you want to learn? Go attach yourself to that person, and that'll help you get there a heck of a lot sooner.
Yeah, I was talking about that on a previous podcast as well, about this whole concept of, when you get into a place, mm-hmm. one of the best things you can do for yourself is look at everything, see everything, take in everything, and look for that one or two or three people that you might want to attach yourself to, that you may want to say, hey, I'm really impressed with, what you do and how you do it. And, I would love to learn from you. And it doesn't even have to be somebody in your same department.
It wasn't for me.
For somebody else, just that impresses you, find that person that can be that for you. And that person can eventually, if you prove yourself, worthy, that person can be your champion.
Absolutely.
For that organization. One of the other things I always tell people is that, my philosophy of leading HR has always been, our job as an employer is to help you get to your next position, whether that position is within our company or it's outside. So if you work here for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever that number is, and you have accelerated your career and it helps you to get to that next level at another place, that person is going to leave your employ and also be a champion for your company, right? But absolutely. That's something that, that individuals need to find in others. And that's just a big part of, what's going to help you grow in the future, whether it's as a reference, somebody being a reference for you, or network, and so on.
Yeah, all of the above. Totally agree with you. The
Yeah.
mentors that I had through my career, David, were from all different facets of the organization. They all did something very different. And when I went to them and pretty much said exactly what you stated, I would really like to be mentored by you. I'm especially interested in how you do this.
Right.
And people are very willing to kind of reach down, reach across, reach up, do whatever they have to do to help you be successful.
Yeah.
But I'll also say you've also got to be in a company that values that. So one of the things I always tell people, make sure that the company values match yours. Because if they don't, you're just not going to be effective as a leader, even as an employee. It won't be a good situation for you.
So when you're working with a client now, or over the years that you've coached and mentored people,
Yep.
how do you talk to people about how they're making their choices, right? So if you decide, if an individual decides, okay, well, I want to go after this, or I want to, go after this kind of job and this kind of employer, what do you do to help somebody kind of figure out how to make a decision, right? How to make a choice
Yeah.
to go in a certain direction.
Yeah. Well, most of the women, because I'm exclusively working with women now, but even the men that I coached, all of them were stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time they were stuck because you can't see yourself. It's like the same thing actors go through. They can't see themselves on stage. That's why you need a director to kind of say, hey, this might help you. Or do you realize this? It's no different in coaching people. They can't see what they can't see.
Right.
So, with some of there was this one gentleman I coached who was in this company. There were multiple presidents across different channels. He was kind of tapped by his senior manager to ultimately become a president. When I was first hired by this company, that senior manager said to me, he lacks executive presence. And I find him very tactical and not strategic. And I said to myself, there's a pattern here. First of all, what the hell is executive presence in this organization? What does that mean and what does it look like? And then the second piece of it is, what is he doing to kind of, make him seem more tactical than strategic? So it really started with, show me just an agenda. Show me your last 2 or 3 agendas with your staff. And David, I got to tell you, even the agenda pointed to me as very tactical. And what I did with one of his agendas is I said, here's yours. This is yours. Now take a look at mine and tell me what you think the difference is. And he looked at it and he went, wow. Yeah, it's very different. And I said, well, why is it different? Well, he said, because it's not looking at the past, it's looking at the future. I went, yep. And what does a strategic thinker do? That's exactly what they do. They look to the future. So it's present kind of in everything he was doing. And as a result of that, he became very tactical in strategic meetings.
Okay.
So the leadership team would kind of pass over him, kind of thinking that's his expertise. And they never saw him as, quote, presidential. And it took us probably a year and a half to kind of get him I don't want you to get the wrong impression here, but even I always say to people, dress for the job you want and not for the job you're in. And he would come to work kind of casual.
Right.
And I would always say to him, your casual dress is great for this job, but is that the job that we're going for? Because then your executive presence is diminished.
Right. And that was, and you were coaching for, when you talk about dressing, right? That was that culture, right?
That's exactly right.
If you go to a high-tech company that's kind of a startup at 50 or 100
jeans and
they don't
jeans
care
and
what you
something
look
else,
like
they don't
for the
care.
most part, right?
This particular company, their
Right.
executives all kind of look the same.
Got it.
But it's the kind of the stuff you got to look for if you're coming into coaching sessions.
Yeah.
So that's one scenario. Then we have women who, I'm coaching a woman now. She has been not the director of communications, just manager of marketing and communications.
Okay.
For, take a deep breath, 20 years.
Okay.
20 years.
20 years, and she's been a manager. Okay.
And she came to me because she was drawn to the word stuck. Impressive career, but looks like you're stuck because you've been in this role for many, many years.
Right.
So what's going on? And we've started just working over the past couple of months. But she's stuck, David, essentially because she keeps waiting for someone to notice. So she overfunctions. I mean, always overfunctions. Volunteers to take on jobs that aren't hers. And I said, so are you getting raises for all this extra stuff you're doing? Well, no, I'm just trying to be a really good employee. And I said, well, if they can get all that for free, why would they consider you for any promotional opportunities or a raise? So, but to her, she is being a good, confident employee.
I'm a team player, right?
I'm a team player. And, so what I said to her is, so if you're in a situation like that again, rather than volunteering and saying, oh, I'll take that, I'll do that, why not say, it sounds to me like we need to do some reprioritization to figure out where this is going to land in terms of what we're able to do.
Yeah. So she actually made, and she made a conscious choice, right? To say, I'm going to be this way, right?
Yeah.
And got stuck in that choice.
Yes.
I don't know if she ever said, well, what's my choice? I don't have a choice, but she got stuck in the choice that she made and didn't know how to.
Yeah. And also the stall, I call it the stall. So I said, so what role do you want to ultimately be? Well, I want to be the vice president of marketing and communications. And I went, okay, did you ever tell anybody that? Did you ever ask for it? Well, no. I'm waiting for them to notice. And I kept saying, you've been waiting for 20 years. Have they noticed yet? So I know that's, I'm oversimplifying it, but
Sure.
when someone has been in that funk for that many years, it's really very difficult for them to see it. So, the other thing in addition to mentors, find someone that can kind of have a fresh perspective of who you are, why you're stuck, what are the hidden patterns. And for women, David, it can start with how we're nurtured.
Yeah.
What are the things that mom or dad noticed, and what did you get praised for? I can remember always, my my mom always saying, well, if you're a good girl, you will succeed. And those are the, so you are very polite.
Right.
You speak when you're spoken to, the whole that. And I come from an Italian family. If you didn't, death to you. So,
Yeah.
but I learned from a very early age, that's what gets praised. Being aggressive, speaking out of turn, those were things that were not praised.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I was always told that, from the male perspective, right? I grew up, in a time where I was always told, well, if you just work hard, you'll make
harder.
money and you'll make a living. And I always, I was like, screw that. Yes, I'm going to work hard. Yes, absolutely. But you've known me a long time. I'm not bashful
No.
about speaking my mind, and I'm going to make sure that people know what I want, right? And that's something that I feel. I don't know. I think that there's this very serious generational divide from baby boomers,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? From
Yep.
baby boomers like us that are still working, to the Gen Xers, to the millennials, to the Gen
Millennials. Yep.
Zs, right?
Yep.
And one of the things that I am always trying to tell people, right? Ask for
Ask for
something,
what you want.
right? Go for what you want. You may not get it right away, but learn from the ask and
Yep.
what didn't happen, right? Because as I always say, you like the saying goes, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
That's exactly right.
If you can't do that, you're going to remain stuck.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to remain stuck.
Yeah.
So how do we help people to get over that stuckness? Because it's easy to say, you should ask, you have to go for it. And I really feel that the big challenge for people, it's fear, right?
Yes.
Some people are actually they have a fear of succeeding.
Yep. Or just risk taking in general.
Or just risk taking in general, right? Yes.
Yeah. Risk is
everything, almost
a big deal.
everything. I really believe that almost everything in our life that we hesitate on or we don't go for, it all comes down, and it sounds like common sense, but I think it is. It all comes down to fear, either fear of failure or, and people might think it's crazy, but it's fear of success, right? I was kind of, I'm still really nervous about this whole process of, I'm starting a new career in podcasting at 64 years old, right?
Yeah.
And I have said to people, what happens if it's really successful? Like, what happens if all of a sudden I have 1 million followers? Which, from my mouth to God's ears, right?
That's right. Exactly.
But, what do I do, right? And then I sit there and I come back to myself going, well, that's a damn good problem to have, and you'll figure it out.
Problem to have.
And I hope my audience continues to stay with me and evolves with me as I get better and better at doing this job, right? So let me
ask you something. You said you were nurtured one way and then decided to take a different path. Can you tell me what was the trigger that changed that for you?
So, man, let's go into therapy, right? I've been there. But, I honestly, what I really think did it for me was theater, right? So my very first time stepping on stage, I was 8 years old in sleepaway camp. And the energy that I got from that, and what I got from an audience at 8 years old, 9 years old, 10, right? I tell people that, the very first play I ever did in sleepaway camp was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and I played Dopey. And, in that version, Dopey spoke, but the only thing I did was like 4 or 5 times in the show, I went, duh, Snow White. And the audience, right,
Reacted.
which was campers and parents that came up to see it, they were hysterical. And I was like, whoa, that's cool, right?
Yeah.
And the more and more theater I did, and I also loved music and I was always singing.
Yep.
It gave me this level of confidence that my parents never had. My dad was not an outgoing. He was a good man, but he didn't speak much. He did not have a lot to say. And my mother, was also not somebody that was ever ambitious. They were not innovative, creative, strategic people, right?
Yeah.
And so there was theater, but then also when I got into restaurant management too, I was just, I'm this New York kid that was always fast paced. I was always kind of type A. And I had a level of self-confidence that, I got a job as a host at Tony Roma's restaurant on 57th and First Avenue in New York City at 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I was running a restaurant at night as a night manager. So I was a host. And 3 months later, they said, you're doing such a great job. We want to promote you and be a manager.
Wow.
Right? And this is wild. So I was literally working from 5 to like 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 p.m. to 4 o'clock in the morning, going home and getting a few hours of sleep, and then going out, pounding the pavement to try and be an actor, bringing my resume to soap operas, casting departments, going on auditions. I was doing anything I could to be an actor while I have this other career. And so I found my voice, I think, very early on. And I don't know, there was just something in me that I always made my own way, and I was unapologetic about it. And I don't know. One thing I will say, when I was a first VP of HR, we would be on an executive meeting, and people in the room, other executives, would be talking about some issue that we might have or something, but they're all talking about it up here. It's like this very surface level kind of crap. And I'm being like, I sit there and I'm listening. And then the way I like to explain it is that I pull the pin on a hand grenade. I say something like throwing a hand grenade in the middle of the table that I know is going to incite people. And they're like, "Why, you can't say that? And what are you doing this?" And right, and everyone's going. And then we get to a substantive conversation. And at the end of the meeting, we walk out with some solutions to problems that we were talking about. But everyone was talking around it. And I'm like, can we please get down to the heart of this thing instead of bullshitting around this? Right?
Yep.
So that's kind of been my MO throughout my career.
Yeah. So I totally see that. I guess what I would say is you're really fortunate, first of all, because you had that tenacity, and I think being on stage and being an actor is empowering anyway.
I agree.
So you learn you know how to channel fear in a very positive way. For the folks that are stuck, it takes them a while. So for me, I think it's very small steps. So understanding sometimes that if someone is adaptive and performative now, there's probably a reason for that. And we have to unpackage each one of those things before they, quote, find their voice, which is kind of where I started. to be authentic is really it kind of equates to me with authority. To be really authentic, you have to have an authoritative mindset too.
And you have to be incredibly self-aware. You need to
Yes.
be able to
Yes.
look inside
Yes.
yourself.
Look deep.
Right?
Deep.
Look really
Yep.
deep inside yourself
Yep.
to find out who you really are at your core and what you want to be, who you
Yep.
want to be. And then you have
And
to
also standing behind.
Yes.
And not having not to be fearful of presenting your ideas.
Yeah.
That is like critical to me. Don't be afraid to demonstrate what you know.
Yeah.
Without cushioning, without over explaining, without asking for permission. I see that a lot. People asking for permission. And the minute they kind of break out of that, things start happening for them. So it may not be, oh, I'm going to be vice president of marketing and communications tomorrow. But there's kind of chinks in that armor, and things start to fall away, and they can start to see a clearer path.
Yeah. So how about, I think, what both of us are sharing is like kind of dead on for what people need to understand and try and find their way to. And I'm wondering if you look at the younger generation, right? So if you look at people in their 20s to their mid 30s, maybe even 40, right? If you look at that range of demographic, do you see a group of, I know you're working mostly with women, but so do you see a group of women that feel empowered to speak their mind, or do you feel opposite? Because I feel like we've made such great headway over the years of women, yeah, it's still not, that glass ceiling, is not
Still
broken
there.
today, right? It's still
Right,
there.
still
And
there.
some people, and the people that get there, right? Like, talking about HP, like the Carly Farinas and, the people like that, the Oprah Winfreys of the world, right? The Taylor Swifts of the world. They just have this something that probably can't be taught, right? But what are you seeing? And
It's funny. It's funny, David. To me, it's a different type of pressure that they're feeling.
okay,
That they're used to an environment where things happen very quickly. That's number one.
right,
So they were born in tech heaven. AI. I mean, we had to learn all that stuff.
right,
So for them, the stuckness is that I'm not getting to where I want to be in my first year and a half on this job. And they feel incredible pressure to be successful. And with a lot of them, I find them very anxious and sometimes debilitating anxiety.
yeah,
Where they really can't get out of their own way. And if they don't achieve XYZ in this amount of time, they immediately go to, I'm a failure. So it's part of your job sometimes is to be, a therapist plus, and I often say to some of these younger women I coach, you may need something to help with your anxiety. And I'm not a therapist, but I can tell you if this is as debilitating as you're explaining it to me, then you probably need to go see someone to help you regulate this a little bit. So I see it on the anxiety end that really, really keeps them stuck. And then a lot of, I'm not worthy of this next step. I see that a lot. I only see myself in this function, and I can't see myself beyond this function. So yeah, it happens with those that are younger, those that are midway through the careers, and those that have had relatively successful careers, but they're still kind of myopic in their viewpoints.
Yeah. It's interesting. With all the people that I interview on a regular basis, I'm shocked at times where I'm talking to people that really are not able to articulate what they really want. No matter how hard I try to put them at ease and make them feel comfortable and say, look, I'm looking to try and make a good fit here. And you may not be the right fit for this job. I may have another job that might fit you, that could be open, or it's not the right job. And this is where I talk about choice a lot, is that you can make a choice to take a job that's just a job, and you're going to be miserable in it. And then there's a good likelihood of not performing well in the job, or just feeling like you were just talking about, like, I'm a failure, it's not working, because you keep putting yourself in that
box,
right?
Yeah. Yep.
And trying to help people get to that place of thinking, that's the kind of organization I want to work for. That's the kind of thing I want to do, the kind of role I want to play. Okay, now how do I make that happen? And that's where I try to coach people as well to do that better for themselves. And it's really frustrating sometimes, because I'll talk to someone that I feel has great value, but they're just not able to really articulate what they want to do.
Yeah.
And
I ask some of the women I coach to create a company value, like list the values that you want in a prospective company that you're going to. What are the things that have to stand out to you? Because you're speaking about choice. Sometimes people don't even realize they have a choice.
Right.
So I say to them, if these are the values you want, these are the companies plural out here that are their mission is to do this every single day. So the world is your oyster here. You're not in a box. There are many different opportunities, but you first have to be able to figure out, what is it that I'm looking for? And then finding those matches. And I don't know how, transferable skills is something else, David, helping them articulate that. I don't see myself as a project manager. Oh, you don't? Okay, well, let's talk about what are the things you do that project managers do? So it may not be in the title, but do you have the skill set? Probably. So it's all of that stuff.
Yeah, I've done a lot of that with you. It's funny that you mentioned project manager, because I've done a lot of that kind of coaching when I was working with veterans, and I would talk to veterans about getting project management certifications, because especially if they were veterans that have been in combat situations,
right?
Because I'm like, you've got the most critical project management skills of anybody.
Absolutely.
You could be in a situation where shit goes sideways in a heartbeat, and you've got to immediately figure out, what's my next plan? What do I have to
Absolutely.
do in order to
Yep.
live? Right.
Yep.
And that is a skill that is very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to get people to thinking about it and why they do it. And I'm always trying to get people to make lists, right? They make a list of
I do
what
too.
you feel are all of your
Yeah.
competencies, right? What do you do well? And then
Yep.
make a list right next to it about what are your character traits, right? What makes
Mm-hmm.
you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And then start to make a list about what are the kinds of jobs that you feel you might want to do, and don't stop.
Put yourself in a box.
Lock yourself,
That's
right?
right.
I don't care if one of the things
Yep.
you want to do is be an astronaut. Put it down,
Right.
right? Put
Right.
everything down.
Yep.
This is your wish list. A genie's going to come and grant you wishes. What are you going to
Right.
put down, right?
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yep.
And start to really do that very methodically, because that's the other thing about project management. Your job, your career search, it's a project.
It's a project.
It's a project. And
Yep.
you've got to treat it like that.
Yep.
And we're going to get more into that, like on the details of doing that throughout the podcast series, and go into each kind of specific detail of the job search, right?
It's so important, David. It really is. And in the job, the amount of time it takes now to find a job that meets and ticks all the boxes. You have to have a lot of tenacity.
You do.
To
And
stick to it.
yeah. And, and in times like this, we've both lived through a bunch of different job markets, good and bad.
Yep.
And as someone who has been right in the thick of it in, the recruiting space, this job market is very challenging because there's more people than there are jobs.
Right.
And when you get laid off from a job, your initial reaction is to, I got to go find a job. And you go and you start looking on whether it's Indeed or LinkedIn, and you see a job, you click apply. You see a job, you click apply. And I'm always sharing with people, don't do that. Okay. Don't just start applying to 100 jobs.
Yep.
Okay.
Do some research, do some legwork.
Do some research. And the other key thing for all of you listening to this, take note of this. Never apply to a job from a job board.
Yeah.
A job board is a tool for you to find opportunities. And if you find one that you really think syncs with, all the things we've talked about and more, then like you just said, go do your research.
Go do your research.
Go look at who's there. Do you have any LinkedIn connections? Do you, I'll tell just a very, very quick story. There was a company in Massachusetts years ago that was an HR technology company. And I was really thinking about looking for something new. I was thinking about going someplace else. And this place I really liked what they were doing. And in researching them, I saw that the CEO had been he rode crew in college. Crew was like all over his interests on LinkedIn and stuff. And I was like, very interesting. So my ex-brother-in-law, who is one of, if not the most renowned women's crew coach in the country for many years, won national championships, been coach of the NCAA coach of the year a number of times, coaches in the Olympics. And I wrote a LinkedIn message to this CEO, right? And I didn't even know if they had a job open, right? And I wrote to him, and the very first line was, I think his name was Neil. And I said, hi, Neil, I noticed that you rode crew in college, and my brother-in-law is blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now on a professional level, I love what your company is doing. I would love an opportunity to talk about, could there be a role for me in your company, and so on. Swear to God, 30 minutes later, he wrote back to me on LinkedIn and he said, thanks so much for your message. Yeah, I still am very much follow crew. And at the time, my brother-in-law at the time was the head coach of Cal's women's crew team out in California, right?
Yeah.
And he said, and by the way, I think your brother-in-law just hired my niece as his assistant coach.
Wow.
And he said, so I'm going to send an email to our senior VP of HR and ask him to get in touch with you and talk to you. Now, they didn't have an opportunity for me, and so it wasn't going to happen. But I want you all to think about,
connections.
I had nothing to lose, right?
Right.
And I took a wild shot at something that was an emotional hot button
for that person.
Yep. And by the way, the woman that this guy's niece that my brother-in-law hired, he ended up marrying her a few years later.
Wow.
And that's where, and I finally met the guy.
Met him. Yeah.
So, you never know.
You never know.
And you have to be creative and innovative, especially in a job market like today, to take.
And that's what I mean about do your homework.
Yeah.
Do the research. Look up people. Who do you know in the company? And take a chance. It's a job to find a job.
It is. And take a chance, right? When you blindly apply to something, and even if you think that it's, you may not be the right match for it, but you're just going to apply anyway. It's a very different situation than if you find that, I do have kind of a connection in there that might be able to help me.
Absolutely.
Right. But if you just apply, in all likelihood, they're getting 50, 100, 500. I get up to 1,000 applications now with my client that I work for.
I believe it.
It's crazy.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah, because there's a flood of talented people out there just trying to get on their feet. Yeah.
So I would love to see, any parting kinds of comments, Celia, that you would have, for our audience about, where they go, how, what, something that maybe they can take with them to.
Yeah. I think some of the important things for people, find a mentor. Don't try to do everything on your own, because it's too vast, too big. And if there are people out there that want to help you, take the help. If you need coaching, get coaching. People sometimes see coaching as a weakness. I saw it as a strength. I've had coaches my whole career, whether they were I work with a personal trainer, why? Because I want to be pushed. And I don't know what I don't know about training, but he does. So I'm going to go get that skill from him. So I would say to people, and also ask for what you want. Ask for what you want. You never know what the heck the answer is going to be. And then the other thing I would say, David, that I think you've alluded to through this whole podcast is don't be afraid to stretch yourself. It may not be the exact job description, but in going for it, who knows what kinds of things might be uncovered as a result of that connection.
Yeah.
And look for the connections,
Absolutely.
Yeah. All of those things I think are really important.
That's great, Celia. I appreciate you saying all of that. And hopefully everybody will, take all of this to heart.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So before we go, I just want to, number one, I want to thank you for doing this with me.
My pleasure. I've had fun.
I am so grateful to have you in my life and to be
Thank you.
supporting me
Thank you.
in this.
And I feel the same. You know that.
I do. Thank you so much. And also for all of you to know, and if there are, women out there that are feeling stuck in their career, this is Celia's life. She does this for a living.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, is it ccconsulting.org?
No, it's just CeliaCoutureCoaching.com.
CeliaCoutureCoaching.com.
And go there, click on the book here, and I'll be happy to support you.
Yep.
Even if it's a discovery call, even if you don't know what you need, book the call. Let's just talk.
Yeah. So definitely reach out if you want to connect to Celia. And for all of you that are listening, if what we are talking about in these podcasts, if you like what you're hearing and you think it's valuable information, please like us on YouTube when you see this and share with family and friends. Remember, as I said earlier in my introduction, everyone at some point is going to be looking for a job, no matter what stage of career you are at, right? You're going to be looking for a job. And I hope that we can help you through this podcast. So I thank you all for listening or viewing, whether you're viewing us on YouTube or listening on some other, podcast channel. Thank you so much. And I will be back with more guests and more information. And I wish you all, wonderful holidays and a very happy new year. And thank you for being with us. And Celia, thank you again.
Thank you, David,
for your time. And
Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. And we will talk soon.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.